Today on Your Voice, Your Vote, the statement from Democratic Representative Marie Gluesenkamp Perez made exclusively to Katu that sent shockwaves across the country.
The truth, I think, is that Biden is going to lose to Trump.
She's running for re-election in a crucial swing district. Does she think President Biden's troubles will hurt her chances for re-election? We talk one-on-one. And ranked choice voting coming to Portland. What's behind an effort to end it in Alaska?
This time around, there's more people mobilized to campaign against ranked choice voting.
An interview with a newspaper reporter who's been covering ranked voting in that state. Your Voice, Your Vote starts right now.
From K2 News, this is Your Voice, Your Vote with Steve Dunn.
Hi, everybody. Great to have you with us on this Sunday, July 7th. Southwest Washington U.S. representative made national news this past week while taping an interview for this program. I asked Democrat Congresswoman Marie Gluesenkamp Perez about last month's presidential debate between President Biden and former President Trump. Here's what Gluesenkamp Perez told me on Tuesday that set off a major firestorm.
We all saw what we saw. You can't undo that. And, you know, the truth, I think, is that Biden is going to lose to Trump.
Here's more of her interview on the battle she's facing as a Democrat to keep her seat in Washington Congressional District 3, which is said to be a red district. She flipped that seat in 2022 by beating Republican Joe Kent. Less than 3,000 votes separated them. Joining me now is Democrat Congresswoman Marie Gluesenkamp Perez, who represents Southwest Washington's 3rd Congressional District. And thanks for being with me in the studio. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
This is your first term
Yes.
as a U.S. rep. You're currently one of the most closely watched congressional races in the entire country. Washington primary comes up on August 6th. Top 2 vote getters move on to the general election. How confident are you will be on that November ballot?
Well, I'm pretty confident. I think it's basically lining up to be a grudge fight between me and my opponent from the last cycle, Joe Kent. So we are focused on just delivering for our district, our community, Southwest Washington. The campaign is not the focus. It's continuing to serve folks in my community.
In order for Democrats to regain control of the House, Democrats need to win toss-up seats like yours. Rollcall.com writes you're one of the most vulnerable Democrats in 2024. Describe the pressure you're under right now because of that.
I don't spend a lot of time reading roll call. It's not the focus of my attention. I've got a 2.5-year-old at home. We have about a 4-hour commute to get him to daycare every day. And, you know, trying to run a small business, trying to have a strong marriage and a healthy family, those are the things that anchor me in the kinds of priorities that deliver for Southwest Washington. I don't know a lot of people that read roll call. That's not where my interest lays. And I think having a close fidelity and responsibility for my community is the kind of thing that gives me motivation to stay here and continue to fight for the seat.
Pressure's on President Biden to consider his decision to run for a second term, reconsider it after last month's debate, which, as we all know, did not go well for him. Do you think the president should remain in the race, or should he step down?
Yeah, about 50 million Americans tuned in and watched that debate. I was one of them for about 5 very painful minutes, and we all saw what we saw. You can't undo that. And, you know, the truth, I think, is that Biden is going to lose to Trump. I know that's difficult, but I think the damage has been done by that debate.
Should he step down then now, do you believe, or stay in that race?
Well, a core tenet of democracy is that you accept the results of an election. And the reality is, primary voting has already happened to a degree that Biden is the nominee.
You know, we talk about, you know, Joe Biden, President Biden, obviously having some issues with the debate and some folks kind of moving away from him. Does that make your job more challenging?
I think that folks have seen clearly that I am not typically aligned with a lot of the positions of this president. And partisan politics is not the solution to our needs in Southwest Washington. I've refused to play the game of, currying or tailoring to any strong partisan interest. My interest is in my community. And so having that view from the beginning and that being my durable interest, I hope that voters know that we are not the same person.
Your campaign is running an ad that says you're taking on the Biden administration and working with Republicans to secure the southern border and improve public safety. Please give us some specific examples on how you've taken on the Biden administration.
I have been completely dismayed by the lack of urgency around securing the southern border and regaining operational control. Fentanyl is hollowing out rural communities like mine. It is our friends and our neighbors, our coworkers who are overdosing in their cars, leaving kids orphaned. This is a real problem. This is not some time to have lackadaisical attention. And so I've called on the administration to empower Border Patrol. I voted to fund the largest Border Patrol workforce in American history. I supported and led on the bipartisan End Fentanyl Act. And, the administration has at times been responsive, not to the degree which I would like, but somebody needs to hold up a mirror and turn their attention to the chaos and the pain that is being generated here.
National Republican Congressional Committee posted a video of you saying no one stays awake at night worrying about the southern border. Can you give us some context on that statement?
Yeah, that was taken completely out of context from an interview over a year ago. And I have fought tooth and nail to draw attention to the crisis at the southern border and create stability. And I was talking about people staying awake at night worrying they can't get their kids a spot in rehab for fentanyl addiction, worrying about your truck being repossessed, worrying about losing your small business, and not this narrow focus of endlessly debating what a perfect system would be. The pain is real and present now for American families, and there is no excuse for being lackadaisical in our approach and support and urgency to address this issue.
What would you like to see Congress do when it comes to illegal immigration?
Well, it's important that we have a system of law and order, that we are responsive to our Border Patrol agents who say they need more support, take them seriously, fund them adequately. We've got to fight back because to many of us right now it feels like it is the cartels who are running and benefiting from the chaos at the southern border. And I argue that the fuller view of humanitarianism is listening to the families in Mexico, the businesses in Mexico who are being extorted by cartels, and ending that authority and exercising our own authority to gain operational control at the border.
You mentioned fentanyl earlier. How big of a problem is that in your district?
Profound. It's profound. And the human scale of suffering is something that is often quiet, but it is everywhere. You look at the rates of addiction and young people who feel like they can't make their way, they don't have the opportunities to start their own business or own a home. They don't have the same access to the middle class that previous generations did. And the work of creating stability and ending this suffering is very real to me, and it's personal.
You mentioned the border. What else should Congress be doing to lessen this fentanyl crisis?
I mean, Remain in Mexico is an important facet of that. Exercising expulsion authority is critical. We've got to fund a adequate workforce. When you look at the rates of employment and the number of agents we have compared to the number of crossings that are happened, it is nowhere near a reasonable response. So funding Border Patrol adequately, securing our legal ports of entry, ensuring that we have the technology to detect fentanyl as it comes in, supporting Mexico and stopping the flow of precursor chemicals to create fentanyl. All of those are incredibly important assets and tools that I don't believe this administration has fully exercised.
What's the biggest challenge facing your district? And tell me what you're doing to address it.
Everywhere I go, people are talking about the evaporating middle class, the sense that their paychecks aren't reaching as far as they can, the lack of predictability in grocery pricing, the lack of access to childcare that's affordable. I mean, prices really are one of the biggest problems facing the middle class and families in my community right now. And I'm so tired of hearing these economists debate like, well, it's actually not that bad. It's that bad. You know, when you look at home ownership rates, when you look at housing availability stock, these are the things that are hitting the middle class first. And a lot of us feel like the middle class is an endangered species, and we don't feel a sense of urgency or responsibility among many elected officials to address it.
What can you do from your position to ease some of that?
Well, one of the most important things that you can do as a federal elected is to ensure that we are getting as much of our federal tax dollars back here to make durable investments in the infrastructure of job creation. You know, I think it is Americans that create jobs. I own a small business. I own an auto repair and machine shop with my husband, and you know, it is not the government that is going to sweep in and create jobs. It is people in the trades. It is middle class Americans. It is our business community. But creating a level playing field, predictable regulatory environment, ensuring people have the skills to be successful in starting their own business, whether or not they went to college, ensuring that we don't have lip service for, you know, a version of just because you translated a form into 7 different languages doesn't mean that it is equitable. You need to be able to run a business in this country with an 8th grade reading level. You need to be able to navigate all of the bureaucracy that entails. And so pushing and pulling to create more support for the middle class so they can go out and start their own small business if they want to, and also ensuring that there's a predictable regulatory environment that is accessible and not a moat protecting the big players from the small ones.
You were on this program almost a year ago, and at the time you mentioned the right to repair your own stuff was one of your reasons that you ran for Congress. What's happened with that bill? What's the latest?
Yeah, I'm really proud to be leading on right to repair, and as we discussed, this is something that says, I bought the car, I have the right to take it anywhere I want to get it fixed. I can fix it myself. It's a substantive way of supporting the trades and the middle class and saying we are not just consumers, we are stewards of our belongings. We're not going to rely on an endless stream of cheap goods from foreign countries. We are going to fix things and make them last, just like our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents did. And talking about this issue in a new way, talking about it as a functional, tangible way of supporting the trades, supporting the middle class, functional environmentalism. I have found a whole new host of co-sponsors to support me in this. I think I'm up to 56 co-sponsors on this piece of legislation now. I'm leading on 3 different kinds, one for consumer vehicles, one for agricultural equipment, and one for the kinds of big purchases families make every year, like your laptop or your phone. And these are some of the ways that wealth is being extracted from the middle class every day, and taking it seriously and respecting our drive to have agency and self-sufficiency. Those are the things that we should be pointing the federal government towards.
Any other legislation you're working on in the House that you want to talk about?
Yeah, we're working on, as I mentioned, issues around Pell Grants and support for career and technical education, ways that we can support small businesses in owning their property, not just being renters. I bought our building that our auto shop operates out with a loan from the SBA. It took me a year to navigate that process, and English is my first language. That's unconscionable. That whole year I was doing that, the other properties we were looking at got turned into like trendy co-working spaces or coffee shops or tattoos. I like tattoos, I like coffee. But if businesses in the trades can't own their own property, they can't invest in their community and put down roots, America loses. So we need to take a hard look at how we can create and build durable wealth in the trades communities, in the middle class, and that's the basis of our democracy, I believe.
You won CD3 in 2022 with no funding from national Democrats. You're going to have more help this time financially, no doubt about it. But CD3 obviously considered a red district. More people will be out voting because it is a presidential election year. What's your strategy to win the primary and then the general election?
Staying focused on the priorities of normal people. There is no think tank or political party that understands Southwest Washington the way I do. My great-grandparents are buried here. We've been in this state for 5 generations, and taking that unique perspective and fighting for it, nobody in D.C. gives 2 cents if the Chehalis River Valley floods or if the seniors in Riderwood are out of electricity for 50 hours when it's 12 degrees out. I care. Those are my neighbors. Those are my communities. And I also believe that the solutions to those kinds of problems are the kinds of solutions that are desperately needed all across the middle of the country. So the partisanship, the fights, the scores, the pollsters, like that often feels just like noise to me and distracting from the real work of representing our community and our values in DC.
Number one, you're reelected. Number one priority.
I have to say this is about the economy and choosing which tools, which threads to pull on to bend this economy back in the favor of working Americans and middle-class families. That's my focus, and that's why I think that right to repair legislation is such a strong vehicle for delivering durable change and creating a level playing field for families again.
Representative Gluesenkamp Perez, thank you for coming on the program.
Thanks, Steve.
Appreciate your time. And to watch that entire interview, go to KATU.com.